All right, shalom, shalom. All right, before I get started, I want to give all praise and honor and glory unto Yahweh, Bashem, Yahushai, Bashem Rakakodash. All right, double honors to our apostles and elders of Great Millstone. And, shalom, wakasah, bakyar, which means peace and mercy to the elect throughout the four corners, wherever you may be. All right, I'm the brother Amar from the branch of GMS Cleveland. Come back at you with another video. Lord willing to be edifying to whomever may be watching. And, just want to get into this, update regarding what's happening in the news. And actually, I did a video on this particular topic almost going on a year ago about the Insurrection Act. And it says, this is the title. It says, what is the Insurrection Act and what happens if President Trump invokes it? So I'm going to let this clip play. And then, Lord willing, I'm going to get some precepts.
News contributor John Cohen, who's a former senior official at DHS and Republican and Democratic administrations and a former police trainer. John, thanks so much for joining us. As we heard, the president spoke about potentially using the Insurrection Act to quell the Minnesota protests. So let's just start with the very basics. Tell us about what the Insurrection Act is and how it works.
The Insurrection Act can be invoked by a president, but its invocation is a last-ditch effort. It can be used at the request of the government, request of a governor, or the president can invoke it on his own to suppress an insurrection, rebellion, or unlawful obstruction of federal law. The challenge for the administration is, while they may be able to make a legal case that the act can be invoked, those who oppose the invocation of the act will raise concerns that it's the government's own actions in the conduct of and how they're conducting their enforcement operations and dealing with protests that's actually one of the catalysts for the current unrest in Minneapolis.
So tell us, what's the precedent for this?
Well, it's a law that goes back to the 1700s, and it was intended as a way that the president could take steps if an act of rebellion exceeded the capacity of state and local officials to maintain order, or to deal with an invasion by a foreign army coming into the United States. So like I said, it was intended to be invoked under the rarest of circumstances. And what it essentially does is it not only deploys U.S. military to the streets of a U.S. city, but it suspends prohibitions that preclude them from engaging in law enforcement activities. And this goes back to the earliest days of the Republic, where British troops would regularly go in and search colonist homes and engage in law enforcement actions. So this is something that's very fundamental to the foundation of our Republic.
So we've already experienced several cities in this country where the National Guard has been brought in. What would it look like in Minneapolis if the president did invoke the Insurrection Act there?
Well, it would visibly look very similar. You would see U.S. military vehicles with armed soldiers on the streets of the city. They may be engaging in direct law enforcement activity, detaining citizens. But you're asking the right question, because while the president may have legal authorities to invoke the Insurrection Act, the question is, what's the purpose? In the current environment, as a law enforcement professional, I doubt that sending armed military who have very little experience in handling crowd control activities and whose primary job is to locate the enemy, engage the enemy, and kill the enemy, whether that's the skill sets you need on the streets to deal with demonstrations and protests that are becoming increasingly destructive and violent. What should be happening is state and local law enforcement and the feds should be working together to deal with the immigration enforcement activities and the increased protests.
So we're looking at images in the split screen here of the smoke and of officers versus protesters in the streets. What kind of impact do you think bringing troops would have on this current situation?
I think it would probably make the situation worse. I mean, part of my concern and the concern of law.
Yep, and that's the whole point. That's the whole point. I'm gonna let a little bit more play and I'm gonna get these scriptures, but that's the whole point. When I think she said, what would be the point of, bringing these, this type of personnel to the to the cities is because of, and then he explained. Matter of fact, let me just let that go back quick.
What kind of impact do you think bringing troops would have on this current situation?
Yeah, she said, what kind of impact would that have? All right, on bringing those troops to these streets, and let's see what he says again.
I think it would probably make the situation worse. I mean, part of my concern and the concern of law enforcement professionals is that you watch these videos depicting ICE and Border Patrol personnel, in groups running up to cars, screaming and yelling and swearing and dragging people out of cars. As you watch videos such as the one earlier where they are walking up to people randomly and asking where they were born and for their...
Right, so his reply was, when she asked what kind of impact would they have would they bring these troops on these streets, he said it would probably make the situation worse, and that's exactly what the elites want. That's pretty much, formulating or controlling, this gradual change of, from regular police to military personnel, other military, people, like whether it's National Guard, Army, but it's going to be a lot of, military personnel, and it might even be mercenaries, but that's the whole point. They want this stuff to, reach a tipping point or a boiling point to where they have no other choice but to use force. All right. So, and let me just get this real quick. So while you individuals of our people like Anton Daniels and Corey Holmes, y'all arguing about minuscule things, and not just them, but that's the topic of the week. It's other individuals of our people that's doing similar stuff, hopping on these podcasts and talking about nothing. All right, or just pretty much being lost in la la land. All right, there's a lot of things that's taking place where if you're not in the know, or the Lord does not, have your eyes open, you're going to be blind to the bread and circus. All right, you're not going to be paying attention to the things that really matter. So anyway, this is Ezekiel 2:1. It says, "He said unto me, Son of man, stand upon thy feet, and I will speak unto thee." And the Spirit entered into me when he spake unto me. It says, and set me upon my feet, and that I heard him that spake unto me. And he said unto me, Son of man, I send thee to the children of Israel, to a rebellious nation that have rebelled against me. They and their fathers have transgressed against me, even unto this very day. And this also is letting you know who the prophets were sent to. All right, the Lord said he sent them to the children of Israel. That message has not changed. All right, the men of the Lord, the prophets, have always been sent to the children of Israel to warn them, to tell them, and to, depending on the time frame, all right, to wake them up and let them know their heritage. Because during the time of Ezekiel, 90, if not all, 90-some percent, 99% of Jake knew that they were Israelites. All right, it would, you always had situations where you had, a handful of alienated Jakes that didn't know, all right, or that grew up in certain areas where there was, that wasn't aware of their culture. But nonetheless, this kingdom that we're in right now, which is currently America, this is the only kingdom where our entire identity has been stripped from us, and we have to pretty much start from scratch. All right, but the Lord has always sent us to the children of Israel to give them warning. All right, to let them know what's about to happen, and we also to tell the heathens their destination. I mean their destiny, all right, which ultimately be servants, all right, and slaves under the nation of Israel, under Yahweh Shemel Shai. Anyway, this is verse 4. It says, "For they are impudent children and stiff-hearted. I do send thee unto them, and thou shalt say unto them, thus saith the Lord Yahweh. And they, whether they will hear or whether they will forbear, for they are a rebellious house, and yet shall know that there have been a prophet among them." And that's the point. All right, whether you hear, whether you forbear, whether you take heed, or whether you don't, all right, you gonna know that a prophet's been among you. You gonna know that there's men of the Lord. Whether it doesn't matter how, regardless of what we look like, you gonna know that it was sincere men and coming in the name of Yahweh Shemel Shai, and truth and sincerity, and teaching you the truth, and let you know what was about to happen and what was going to take place, or what already took place. But a lot of our people, they turned the shoulder. They didn't want to hear. They waved us off. All right, they made mockery. You know what I'm saying? They misused this prophet. So all in all, that's gonna come to bite you, tribes, in the ass, because what's gonna take place soon and very soon is a lot of troublous or terrible times. So it says, verse 7, it says, "And thou shalt speak my words unto them, whether they will hear or whether they will forbear, for they are most rebellious. But thou, son of man, hear what I say unto thee. Be not thou rebellious like that rebellious house. Open thy mouth and eat that I give thee." Right? And it's talking to eat. It's talking about reading this whole Bible, all right, and getting the understanding of what's taking place. All right, watching the videos of the elders and so forth and so on. It says, "And when I looked, behold, an hand was sent unto me, and lo, a roll of a book was therein, and he spake, and he spread it before me, and it was written within and without, and there was written therein lamentations and mourning and woe." And that's the thing. A lot of stuff that's happening in the world right now is about lamentations, mourning, and woe. And there's going to be a lot of that in the upcoming future, especially with all these things that's taking place with the Insurrection Act. That's more than likely going to get enacted or put into play. All right, so they can go ahead and do what they need to do to fulfill the next stages of their agenda. All right, which is ultimately locking this place down. All right, and having their way with you tribes, because that's the main focus. All right, it's always been you tribes. All right, because even with the ISIS situation, you had a woman speaking about I think over there in Orlando, Florida, about how there's the ICE um, agents are coming for those Ephraimites, which are so-called Puerto Ricans over there, and she was concerned, right? But nonetheless, man, like I said, we told you, but a lot of our people, they just don't get it, all right, until the Lord finally lets Esau do what he needs to do, all right, and by that time it's gonna be too late. You gonna actually wish you took heed to this word, man. All right. Get this scripture, man. It's Daniel chapter 12, verse 1. It says, "And at that time shall Michael stand up, the great prince, which standeth for the children of thy people, and there shall be a time of trouble, such as never was since there was a nation, even to that same time. And at that time thy people shall be delivered, everyone that shall be found written in the book." So the ones that's going to be delivered is the ones that's found in the book, which is the elect. All right, the Lord has always had an elect throughout each captivity and throughout each time that will always going to take heed. That was always going to be a delight in His eyes, whom He seen fit to save. All right, He always had 2/3 of our people that the Lord deemed unworthy and seemed not fit for our salvation. All right. And we coming upon them times where there's going to be a time like no other. You're going to have certain things that's going to happen where you're not going to be able to explain, or unless the Lord is with you. Then that's when you'll understand why these things are taking place. Even down to why people are thinking the way they're thinking and why they're acting the way they're acting. This is all due to prophecy. All right, but like I said, if you do not take heed, if you don't believe in the Bible, you're gonna be caught off guard. All right, as opposed to us. We know why this stuff is happening. We know why Esau Edom is moving the way he's moving. We know why he's about to enact the Insurrection Act. We know why the MOTB is on his way. We know and understand that these things were given to. Matter of fact, we get it real quick. This is Amos chapter 3 and 7. "Surely the Lord Yahweh will do nothing, but He revealeth His secret unto His servants, the prophets." Man, all right. And the secrets, all right, that's been revealed to us is the prophecies. All right, we understand why things happen, why they're happening, and why they're and why they're going to happen. We understand. All right, it's all given. All right, to the men of the Lord to present it to you people so you can take heed or not in some cases and get destroyed. But when you've been warned, I would say keep an eye out for this Insurrection Act. Let's just see where it goes from there. So with that, I'm saying shalom.